a city in ruins for 140 years, a man who had never been a builder in his life, active enemies trying to sabotage the project with lies, death threats, and a diplomatic conspiracy. And yet the wall of Jerusalem was rebuilt in 52 days. When his enemies heard it, the biblical text says something extraordinary. They fell greatly in their own esteem. They understood that what had just happened was not just construction, it was something no human strategy could fully explain. Today we're going into one of the most extraordinary civil engineering and crisis management projects of all antiquity. A man with no construction experience organized an entire city to raise a 4-kilometer wall in less than 2 months, while armed hostile groups actively threatened them. What nobody tells you is this: 4 months before this conversation ever happened, Nehemiah had already mapped out exactly what he was going to say to the most powerful man in the world. The planning that went into those 52 days began long before the first stone was lifted. Subscribe now. This channel goes where history, archaeology, and sacred text meet. The book of Nehemiah begins with a date and a title. The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, as I was in Susa the capital, the month of November-December, the year 445 BC, the city of Susa, the same imperial capital where the book of Esther unfolds, Nehemiah, the cupbearer of King Artaxerxes I. This position may sound modest, but it was extraordinarily important in the Persian world. The royal cupbearer was the king's personal life guardian. He was the one who tasted the wine before the king drank it, to ensure it was not poisoned. He was the last filter between the king and his enemies. In modern terms, a combination of head of personal security and chief trusted executive assistant. Nehemiah 1-2-3. Hanani, one of Nehemiah's brothers, arrives in Susa from Judah with a group of men. Nehemiah interrogates them directly about the condition of the Jews who had survived the exile and about the state of Jerusalem. The answer devastates him. The remnant there in the province who survived the captivity is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates are destroyed by fire. Jerusalem's walls had been destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon in 586 BC, 140 years before the moment Nehemiah receives this news, more than a century and a half without walls. The holy city of Judaism, the center of his people's identity, remained exposed, vulnerable, without the basic protection that any significant human settlement possessed. Nehemiah 2-1-5. The month of Nisan, year 20 of King Artaxerxes. Nehemiah serves wine to the king, and for the first time in his years of service, the text makes it explicit. He looks sad. In Persian court protocol, appearing before the king with an expression of sadness without the king having requested, it was a protocol violation that could cost your life. The king notices, "Why is your face sad, seeing you are not sick?" This is nothing but sadness of the heart, and he orders him to speak. What Nehemiah does in the space of the seconds that follow is a demonstration of absolute preparation. He has the answer ready. He has rehearsed this moment for 4 months. Without hesitating, without stumbling, he explains the situation, formulates the request, "Send me to Judah, to the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it." And when the king asks how long, gives a precise date. The king grants it, and then Nehemiah, still in that same moment, asks for letters of safe conduct for the governors of the provinces beyond the Euphrates, and a letter for the administrator of the king's forests requesting lumber for the gates, the walls, and his own residence. He not only gets permission, he gets resources, authority, and logistical protection in a single exchange. 4 months of preparation converted into a 5-minute request that obtained everything needed for the project. Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem. He has the king's letters. He has the authority, the resources, and the first thing he does before telling anyone why he has come is wait 3 days. Nehemiah 2:11, 1-2. After 3 days I arose in the night, I and a few men with me. and I told no one what my God had put into my heart to do for Jerusalem. The nocturnal inspection of Jerusalem's walls is one of the most vivid episodes in the book. Nehemiah circles the perimeter of the city in the darkness, examining the state of the walls and destroyed gates, passing through the Kidron Valley, turning south, until the debris-strewn terrain makes it impossible for the mount to advance, and he has to continue on foot. Nehemiah 2:17, 1:8. He convenes the leaders of Jerusalem, the priests, the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, and tells them exactly three things, in this order. First, the diagnosis. You see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins, with its gates burned. He does not minimize it. He does not sweeten it. He presents reality as it is. Second, the proposed solution. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer suffer derision. A concise, direct phrase, with a clear, emotional purpose. Not just the defensive utility, but the city's dignity. Third, proof that the project has backing. Then I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had said to me, divine authorization and imperial authorization, spiritual motivation, and logistical guarantee. The assembly's response is immediate. Let us rise up and build. And the text adds, so they strengthened their hands for the good work. If this is teaching you something about leadership that no modern management book has given you, leave your like now and share this video. Someone you know needs this example of leadership under pressure. No extraordinary construction project happens without opposition. The opposition to Nehemiah's wall was systematic, escalating, and multi-front. And its protagonists are archaeologically identifiable. Sanballat the Horonite, the most prominent of Nehemiah's enemies, appears in the Elephantine Papyri, a collection of Aramaic letters from the 5th century BC discovered in Egypt in 1907. These letters specifically mention Sanballat as governor of Samaria during the period of the book of Nehemiah. He is not an invented character. He is the real provincial governor of the region neighboring Judah. Tobiah the Ammonite appears in extra-biblical records as well. Geshem the Arab was identified in 1947 when an inscription was discovered at an Egyptian shrine dedicated to the god Han, bearing the name Gashmu, son of Shahar, king of the Arab kingdom of Kedar. Exactly the title that would belong to an influential Arab of Nehemiah's era. The opposition to Nehemiah followed a systematic escalation of 4 phases that modern strategists would recognize as a sabotage manual. Phase 1. Public ridicule. Sanballat and Tobiah openly mocked the project before their own audiences. What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore it for themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they finish up in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish? Tobiah added, yes, what they are building. If a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall. The objective was to create discouragement in the workers before the project gained momentum. Phase 2. Military threat. When the wall reached half its height, the coalition of enemies began conspiring to physically attack Jerusalem. Nehemiah reorganized the work. Half the workers built, while the other half stood guard, with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The construction workers had a sword at their belt while they built. Those carrying materials worked with one hand and held a weapon with the other. Phase 3. The trap invitation. 4 times Sanballat and Geshem sent messages inviting Nehemiah to a meeting at a neutral location. 4 times Nehemiah responded with the same phrase, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? The 5th time they sent an open letter designed to be read by everyone, accusing Nehemiah of planning a rebellion against Persia. Nehemiah responded simply, no such things as you say have been done, for you are inventing them out of your own mind. Phase 4. The inside spy. A prophet named Shemaiah tried to convince Nehemiah to flee to the temple out of fear of a night attack. Nehemiah recognized him as an agent of Tobiah and Sanballat. I understood and saw that God had not sent him, but that he had pronounced the prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Nehemiah 6:15. And the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month Elul, in 52 days. Nehemiah needed a communication system that could alert the entire workforce in seconds in case of attack. Nehemiah 4:18-20. Each of the builders had his sword strapped at his side while he built. The man who sounded the trumpet was beside me. And I said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, "The work is great and widely spread, and we are separated on the wall, far from one another. In whatever place you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us." A single trumpet player beside Nehemiah, and one audible signal along the entire perimeter. And the instruction that any group hearing the trumpet would immediately converge on the point of attack. This is an early warning and rapid response system, a communication protocol. Simple, audible, unambiguous. That required no messengers and could be activated in seconds. Nehemiah 5:16. I also persevered in the work on this wall, and we acquired no land, and all my servants were gathered there for the work. The governor of Judah, the man with imperial authority to administer the region, was on the wall with his hands, building alongside everyone else. Not only that, in a period when previous leaders of Judah had levied heavy taxes on the population, Nehemiah chose not to collect the provision that was his due as governor. He renounced his income during the 52 days of the work, and while not collecting, he fed at his table 150 Jewish leaders, plus the representatives of neighboring nations who came to meet with him. On the 25th day of the month of Elul, 445 BC, the wall was finished. Nehemiah 6:16 describes the reaction of the enemies when they heard it. And when all our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem, for they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. We have walked today through one of the most extraordinary crisis management projects of ancient history. We saw a bureaucrat with no construction experience plan for 4 months obtain everything needed in a single conversation with the most powerful man in the world, silently inspect the project before announcing it, organize 40 groups in parallel work, face 4 fronts of simultaneous sabotage, resolve an internal social crisis without stopping the work, and finish in 52 days what had been in ruins for 140 years. The archaeology has confirmed the characters. The Persian record has confirmed the context. The broad wall is visible in Jerusalem today. The Book of Nehemiah is not just sacred literature. It is a historical document of remarkable coherence with the period it describes. See you in the next one.